It's a sad day, guys. Amongst all these behemoths, we have this little JK over here that we call Grandma. And yes, we're selling Grandma. This is the first LS JK that we built here at MoTech. This was our proof of concept model. This JK now has 160,000 miles on it. It was daily driven by my wife. This JK hauled my wife and kids around. This JK has the original radiator, fan, drive shafts, transfer case. You'll see what we got under the hood when I open it. This JK was done the old-fashioned way, and it still is the old-fashioned way. We don't have a CAN interface in this. We don't even have a MoTech module in this. Everything was integrated independently. Let's take a quick look at it. This is a 2008 Sport. It does have Sahara rock rails, so my kids could get in, and some Sahara rims. Very basic JK, no power windows or power door locks. As you can see, the mileage here, barely broken in at 160,000. Both the engine and the Jeep have about 160,000 on it. We did install a third seat in the back and a tailgate opener. So when we had more than 3 kids with us, they had a place to sit. One of the few options this JK had was the hardtop. This JK has typical parking lot bruises and bumps, but it's been a great vehicle. The windows were tinted heavily. It has roof insulation. So here in Las Vegas, even when it was 120 out, the interior stayed cool. This JK has been around the country many times. It's been in New York, Florida. It again has the original radiator, AC condenser. I did install a Rubicon bumper on this, and this is the original license plate, which I'm going to keep. Here in Nevada, you get to keep your plates. So let's open the hood up and see what we got under here. When we built this JK, it wasn't about looks, it was about proof of concept and functionality. And not much, if anything, has really changed over the last decade. If you look at the battery, it has been replaced. We are running the Silverado battery cables. You can see the junction block in the back on the firewall there. That's original Silverado. So that wire goes around to the alternator. Our accessories are laid out just like our current accessories. These brackets were handmade all those years ago, and they're laid out very similar to our current billet brackets. However, the offsets are just a little bit different because, like I said, they were handmade. This is a unmodified Chevy Silverado upper hose, which we still use today. And again, the air intake, mouth sensor, air cleaner is very similar to what we do today. No modifications to the power steering system. This, of course, did use our Weldon motor mounts, and we modified these AC lines. This is actually, hey, we got something coming out of Nellis. Usually when we have one F-16 come out, we got another. Alright, hopefully it's just the pair. Okay, so we've been slotting the GM ECM down here since the beginning, as you can see. This gives you room for an S-Pod or whatever. This is, of course, a handmade bracket. This is the original GM power distribution center, and we made a tin cover for it, which has worked all these years, and actually I've never blown a fuse, so this cover hasn't been off. But we're now using the original GM power distribution center connector in our current swaps. So it is a little bit ironic how similar this is to our current offering. We've got our stock AC condenser, air conditioning lines. This is a stock 2-speed fan, and believe it or not, over all these years, this fan has kept this JK cool here in Las Vegas, even in the triple digits. And my wife always has the AC going full blast. Now, back in the day, we did not use electronic control of the air conditioning. I don't know if you can see, but we did use a cycling switch, both high and low. So the compressor would cycle based on pressure in the lines rather than evaporator temperature and AC condenser pressure. This is an early coolant bottle that we just rigged in because we didn't have anything production at that point. This is a factory GM harness, factory JK engine harness. Very, very similar to what we're doing today, but of course what we're doing today is a lot more efficient and easier to install. We're not running the B&M cooler that we normally run. Back then I probably got a tranny cooler that was laying around the shop, but it's done a very good job. Nothing on this JK has been changed. The engine, the transmission, the transfer case, axles, it's all original from 10 years ago, now with 160,000 miles. Before I close the hood, I just want to say that this engine has really been a charm for us. With all these miles, it still does not burn a drop of oil. My wife very rarely services it. This engine can use 530 conventional, which it gets. It gets regular gasoline. We do not run premium in it. It does not get synthetic oil. So this is one of the first times it's been in the shop to actually get some attention, because about 364 days out of the year this vehicle is in service. Now I will say that this vehicle is going to a friend, so that makes me feel a little bit better. This vehicle is not running a CAN module, obviously. If you saw how long it took for that tachometer to kick up, that's because in this early setup this was a manual transmission vehicle, and we did convert it to an automatic, but it was not getting a cam signal. The manuals do not have auto start, so they don't have anti-grind, so we're okay not running that cam signal. And a lot of the other things in this were interfaced discreetly, and we'll go over that in our drive. First things first, let's turn the AC on. And this AC really does work awesome. With all these tinted windows and insulation, you actually have to turn the air conditioning down because the kids get cold in the back, even on the hottest days. As far as economy goes, this JK gets just over 20 miles to the gallon on the highway. I can go over 400 miles on a tank safely, and we're getting about 16, 17 around town. Now we have 32-inch tires, no lift, no armor, bumpers, none of that stuff, no winch, so it's a relatively light JK. Quickly, if you look at this cruise control switch, this is what we did in the old days. This is actually the factory JK switch, but it has the GM electronics in it. So it functions exactly like the original JK switch. However, if you look at this light, that's actually not only the on-off indicator, but a malfunction indicator light for the cruise control system. So it works just like the early GM Gen 4s did. And it's fully functional and it works awesome. This Jeep is running a body control module. So we have tap shift. As you can see, the tap shift switch down here. Cruise control, power modes are all being run through the body control module. Now this was a lot of work in the old days, and I'm going to lower this air a little bit so you can hear me. And it's not nearly as easy as it is today. We had to install extra electronics on the inside of the vehicle. Today we're not installing much. The check engine light was down on the data link connector. It was not supported in the dash way back in the day, but you know when that light goes off because you'll see a big yellow glow down there on the floor. Fortunately in this vehicle it does not go off. So let's go for a little ride. Notice we have no Prindle on the dash because this again was a manual JK, and back then we did not support lighting up the Prindle on the dash. So you got to use your Prindle down here. This JK is running the original rear exhaust. The muffler and rear tailpipe sections are from the original 08 JK. We're only running new downpipes, and they're from the donor engine with the GM converters. So let's go through some of the functions. We got our cruise control on, as you can see. I'm going to bump it down. We are now in cruise control. Now we're going to go back into tap shift, and you're not going to know we're in tap shift because there's no Prindle on the dash, but you will see it down here. I put it in second gear. So now being in second gear, if I come over to this switch, I'm going to downshift, downshift, downshift. Now I'm going to go back into drive. So even all those years ago, everything was functional, and this JK, while interfaced and integrated very differently than today, there's very little loss of functionality over what we're doing today. This JK has 321 gears. That's right, 321 gears in it with 32-inch tires, which basically means we cruise at 70 miles an hour at about 1600 RPM. And it pretty much stays in sixth most of the time. Under a moderate load, it'll drop down into fifth, but this nets really good economy. Like I said, this JK, if driven under 70 miles an hour, or even at 70 miles an hour, can get 20 miles to the gallon. Kind of hard to tell, and you guys probably can't hear it, but I'm a 4-cylinder right now, and that's another reason we get pretty good economy around town. And this AC is getting cold. Let me turn it down. The 4-cylinder mode definitely nets better mileage in this JK. In a heavy JK, it probably wouldn't do you very much good at all. We are running full hydraulic mounts in this JK. I will say that in this JK, I did some experimenting with engine mounts and determined that we wanted to run the OE hydraulic mounts. We tried some other ones, and when AFM engaged, it was a little bit rough, so we ended up going back to the original mounts that were intended for this motor, and that's what this engine's running. And this does have the weld-in mounts. Of course, we didn't have our easy mounts back then. We didn't have a lot of the things that we have now. We didn't have the billet drive. We don't have the easy mounts. We don't have the CAN interface. We didn't have the MoTech module. The air conditioning on this is being run partially through our electronics, which senses the AC on. So when you turn that yellow button on and off, that's basically your AC request, and that did have to be interfaced. It's a multiplex signal. And then we also had to control it for evaporator temperature, which is being done off of a low side pressure cycling switch, and it works really good actually. The air conditioning in this Jeep is excellent. It gets down to about 35, 36 degrees. Of course, we had to have neutral safety, and yes, this is fully functional. We have an additional park neutral module that basically controls neutral safety in this Jeep. The brake interlock is functional, so you have to hit the brake to get it out of park. The key interlock is functional, so you have to have it in park to get the key out. So this is really the grandma of all the LS swaps.